Alright, so in today's video, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the rocker arms and how to adjust the rocker arms on a hydraulic lifter assembly. Whether it's a flat tappet or roller cam, it's going to be the same process. If you didn't know, these are your push rods. These here are your rocker arms. Now what you end up wanting to do after you get these things cleaned, you either run them through a parts washer or whatever. Find yourself a clean piece of glass. Okay, glass is probably what I prefer to use because it's relatively straight. And you just want to roll it back and forth. Okay, if it rolls and there's nothing that's lipping up, then your push rods are straight and you can go ahead and reuse them. So that's the first one. Second thing is, there's a lot of different methods and a lot of different ways that guys like to set the preload on the rocker arms, on the lifters. I like doing them individually, rotating the camshaft, get each one of these down at their lowest point, where the lobe of the actual camshaft is facing down, and then the lifter itself is at its lowest point. But basically what you want to do is take your push rod, you're going to push it all the way down, I don't know if I can find it, there we go, till it ends up deadening out. Now what a lot of old school guys like to do is they like to take the lifters, soak them in oil for a day, and then they'll work the bubbles out of them. That's not really the proper way to do it, because then you still won't be able to set your preload the way that it needs to. Because what you want to have is you want to have at least a little bit of give. Okay, see how this kind of moves up and down a little bit. Okay, you want to be able to have a little bit of a give in that, and if you end up filling it up with oil, that is not going to budge an inch. And so what ends up happening is, because that lifter won't move, it's going to open up the valve. So when you torque it down, this valve is going to be open, and you're not going to be able to set your preload the way that you need to. So just throw your lifters in there. Don't worry about loading them up with oil, and I'll show you how we're going to get oil into them to begin with. But if you end up doing it this way, I guarantee you're going to be dead on every single time. You're never going to have to worry about popping off your valve covers and then having to adjust these individually. When you do that, you're going to get oil everywhere because it's going to squirt out the top part of your push rod, and it's just going to squirt everywhere. The old school way was you would pull your valve cover off, you would start the engine up, and then you would loosen the nut until it start ticking, and then you turn it just enough where it stops clicking, and then you turn it 3/4 of the way around. By that point you have oil everywhere. I used to do it that way, and I ended up finding a much better way of doing it. And I'm telling you, if you do it this way every single time, you're never going to have a problem with it. So basically what you want to do is come on that side, and you can see where the push rod is just sitting right in the bottom. There we go. Where the push rod is sitting just in the bottom of that lifter cup. Okay, that's right where you want to have it. You want to take your rocker arm, slide your rocker arm through, okay, and then you're going to want to make sure that you have your bottom part of your seat of your rocker arm seated properly on top of your valve. Now what happens sometimes is these things will kink, or people will try to adjust them and they're not right. They push too far up, too far back, but just takes 2 seconds to make sure you have that. You gotta grab an arm here and a bolt. Okay, we'll focus this back again. Focus. Okay, there we go. And what we have here is we have a pillow ball assembly here, and you'll see where one side is rounded and the other side's not. That rounded side is going to go down just like that. And you take your nut. Now if you end up noticing on these, some of the nuts will have indentations on them. Like on this one, you can see it's indented on 3 sides. What that does is actually helps lock the nuts in place so that they don't back themselves up. What happens with some of the older versions is they don't have this, and so what will happen over a period of time is the nut will actually start to back up, and then you'll start hearing taps. Like when the engine's running, you'll hear a little tapping noise. If yours does not have indentations like this, it's very simple. You take a punch, you take a hammer. Once you get these set where they need to, you're going to put it at one end, put your punch right on the corner, and hit it with a very hard hammer or a very heavy hammer. And that way it'll cause like little dimples in there, and it'll actually hold to your stud on the inside there. So anyway, let's go ahead and get to this. So what you're going to do is you're going to tighten this up, okay? Now, as I start to tighten this up, you'll notice that the slack between the top part of the rocker arm, okay, see how it's still loose? We want to get this thing to what's called zero lash, and that is where there is none of this. What you'll do is you'll tighten it down to the point where it's just barely touching, and right where you can lightly spin it, okay, see how you can kind of spin it there? What you'll do is you'll get it right to the point where it can spin and just go a little bit more, and then you'll feel where it's tight and you can't move it. And at that point, you'll go 3/4 of the way around. So let me go ahead and see if I can seat this here and show you. Do this with one hand, so my apologies here. See how we're pulling the slack up there? Just need a little bit more. Okay. It's really close, because see, there's just barely any movement. So we're going to want to go just a little bit more. There we go. Now see, I can't move it up anymore. And see how the inside of the lifter, it hasn't moved down at all. That's right where we want to have it at, okay? See how you can just barely move it? You're going to come back up to the top, and you are just going to go just a hair bit more. Now I can't move it, okay? Once you're at that point, you're going to go 3/4 of the way around, okay? So set right where, oh, there we go. Let me focus this camera again. Once you have it up, take it at 90-degree angle, and then just take it 3/4 of the way around. And that's it. And you're done. Okay? And your preload is set. Do it that way, and you'll never have to readjust these once the engine's back together and once it's in. All you have to do is go ahead and start it. The engine should start within 3 or 4 revolutions. A lot of guys like to do the old techniques, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but I find this way is a lot easier, you know, because I get a lot of phone calls, and I have a lot of engines that I rebuild. I have a lot of customers that call me up and have a lot of work that they call me in for. Very often, if you have all these together, when you go to do your preloads, it's very easy to forget where you're at, and then you have to start all over again. So what I like to do, like I said in the very beginning, you just do each one individually. When you get them all done, if you end up getting pulled off your project, it's very simple, because you already knew which one that you had done last. And whichever one isn't done, guess what? Like this one, it's not done. Now you know which one you need to do. And again, your preloads are set. That's the exact way to do it. And hope this helps you guys out. Not saying the old ways are bad. They're just outdated, and there's much better ways and easier ways of setting your preload on your lifters. So hope this helps. God bless you guys, and thank you for tuning in to Stardust Automotive. Have a wonderful day.